There's a level of mental and physical strength that makes you seem invincible. And today you'll discover how one man achieved it 400 years ago, and how you can do the same. Have you ever met someone who doesn't break? Who faces any situation without hesitation, without backing down, without bargaining with themselves, while everyone else is making excuses to explain their own failures? While everyone else gives up at the first hurdle, she persists. And you know what people say? This guy is lucky, this woman is only like this because of her genetics. This guy only got there because he's friends with the boss. But what many people don't accept is that there's a very high price to pay. Many don't want to pay that price, and they still want to condemn those on the battlefield. However, there was a man in Japan who lived during the Tokugawa era. This man won over 60 duels. He started at age 13 and never lost. If you follow this channel, you know who I'm talking about. Maybe his name is in the title of the video, so it's no secret to anyone else. His name was Miyamoto Musashi, and he wasn't the strongest physically nor the fastest. But he developed something no one could break, a mind that knew no hesitation and a body that knew no limits. Before he died, he wrote it all down in his book, Gorin no Sho, the Book of 5 Rings. And within those pages lies the exact map for how to transform your mind and body into something that people will look at and think, how is that possible? But there's a catch. Musashi's method isn't about motivation, it's about elimination. He didn't build strength by adding things, he built it by removing everything that was getting in the way. Before I show you exactly how this system works, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment. What's your biggest mental or physical weakness that you want to eliminate? This really helps the channel reach more people. Plus, I enjoy reading all the comments and interacting with you. Thank you very much for your attention. Back to the video. Chapter 1. The Awakening. The story I'm going to tell you today begins with a guy named Lucas, an engineer, 32 years old, married, with 2 kids. A normal guy, a normal life, normal problems. But Lucas had a specific problem. He was weak. Not just physically, mental too. He woke up every day promising to work out. He bought a gym membership 3 times, cancelled all 3. He started a diet on Monday and broke it on Wednesday. He promised to wake up early, but hit the snooze button 7 times. The pattern was always the same. Strong intention, weak execution. And that wasn't the only thing that was worse. When things got tough at work, he'd freeze up. When he needed to have a difficult conversation with his wife, he'd put it off. When his children needed correction and to learn about discipline and values, he left it to her to handle. Lucas was living on autopilot, reacting, never acting, until the day he had a panic attack in front of his boss. In the middle of an important meeting, his heart raced, his hands sweated, and the room began to spin. He had to leave. He went to the doctor. Tests were normal. The diagnosis: stress, anxiety, and lack of mental fitness. The doctor said something that changed everything. Your body is responding to threats that don't exist because your mind isn't trained to distinguish real danger from discomfort. You need to train your nervous system. Lucas returned home and began researching how to train the mind, how to build real mental strength. That's when he discovered Miyamoto Musashi. And more specifically, he discovered that Musashi didn't write a philosophy book. He wrote a manual of warfare applied to life. Chapter 2. The Principle of Elimination. The first thing Luke read in the Book of 5 Rings was something that seemed contradictory. Have no preferences. Do not depend on any particular weapon. He didn't understand at first. How do you become strong without having a preference? How do you master something without depending on it? Then came Musashi's explanation. Your strength cannot depend on perfect conditions. If you can only train when you have equipment, you are weak. If you can only meditate when you are silent, you are weak. If you can only focus when you are rested, you are weak. True strength is the ability to perform in any condition. Musashi practiced with wooden swords, metal swords, 2 swords, 1 sword, no sword at all. He fought day and night in the sun, in the rain, in the cold, in the heat. Why? Because the enemy doesn't wait for you to be ready. Lucas realized he was the opposite of that. He could only be productive at the office. He could only work out if he'd slept well. He could only eat healthy if his wife prepared the meals. All his discipline depended on external factors. So he did what Musashi taught. He eliminated dependencies. It started small. Push-up training. No gym, equipment, specific schedule, nothing needed. Just body and floor. He chose 20 push-ups every day. Any time, any place, any conditions. The first week was easy. The second week, his body started to ache. The third week, he traveled for work. The fourth week, he got the flu. This is where he always gave up before. But this time, he remembered Musashi's principle. Practice must continue regardless of circumstances. Traveling? Push-ups in the hotel room? Got a cold? 10 push-ups instead of 20. No energy? 5 push-ups. But never 0. Chapter 3. Haijoshin, the Still Mind. By day 40, Lucas was doing push-ups automatically, but his mind was still a mess. Anxiety about work, worry about money, fear of disappointing his family. He was getting stronger physically, but mentally he was still fragile. It was then that he encountered the concept that Musashi considered more important than any fighting technique. Haijoshin, the everyday mind, the mind that does not change. Musashi wrote, "At the moment of battle, your mind should be exactly the same as your mind when you are drinking tea. No excitement, no fear, just presence. How is this possible? How do you stay calm when someone is trying to kill you?" Musashi's answer was brutal in its simplicity. You train your mind not to react. You don't suppress fear. You become someone who doesn't need to react to fear. Lucas began testing this. Every time he felt anxiety rising, in traffic, in a difficult meeting, in an argument with his wife, he did one thing. He took a deep breath and observed the sensation without reacting to it. It sounds simple, but it was torture at first. His body wanted to scream, argue, run away, but he just watched. My heart is racing, my hands are sweating, my jaw is tense. Just observation, no judgment, no reaction. The first time it worked was in a meeting where his boss started yelling at him in front of everyone. The old pattern was freezing, sweating, and stuttering. This time, Lucas felt the fear coming on, recognized it, and continued speaking normally. His voice didn't shake, his hands didn't sweat. He responded clearly. The boss was confused, the team was shocked. But Lucas knew what had happened. He had accessed Haijoshin for the first time. The mind that doesn't move. A Stanford University neuroscientist who has been studying emotional regulation for 18 years explains, when you practice non-reactive observation of difficult emotions, you are literally rewiring your amygdala. Over time, the activation threshold increases. What once triggered panic now triggers only recognition. Chapter 4. Senshi no Michi, the Way of the Warrior. But Musashi knew that a calm mind without a capable body is an illusion. You can have perfect emotional control, but if your body can't handle it, you lose. He wrote, "Train hard with wooden swords to strengthen the body. When the body is weak, the mind wavers. When the body is strong, the mind remains firm." Lucas had been doing push-ups for 60 days. He had gotten stronger, but he hadn't yet tested his body under extreme conditions. Musashi didn't train in comfort. He trained to the limit and then went beyond. So Lucas decided to do something that seemed insane: 100 push-ups a day for 30 days. No matter how long it took, no matter how many breaks he needed, he was going to complete 100 every single day. Day 1 took 45 minutes. Day 5, he could barely lift his arms. Day 10, his wife told him he was overdoing it. Day 15, he did 100 push-ups in 20 minutes. Day 30, he did them in 12 minutes without stopping. But what changed wasn't just the body, it was the mind. When you prove to yourself that you can do something that seemed impossible, you stop dealing with the difficulty. You just do it. Musashi called this Senshi no Michi, the Way of the Warrior. It's not about talent, it's about eliminating the idea that there's something you can't do if you train hard enough. Chapter 5. Zanshin, Permanent Consciousness. Lucas was physically stronger, mentally calmer, but Musashi had a third principle that separated ordinary warriors from legends: Zanshin, literally translated, the mind that remains. It doesn't mean being always alert in the sense of tense. It means being always present, always aware, never disconnected. Musashi wrote of warriors who won a duel but let their guard down and were attacked while celebrating. He said, "The battle does not end when the enemy falls. It ends when you are safe." Zanshin is the consciousness that does not relax until everything is truly resolved. Lucas realized he was living the opposite of this. He'd finish a project and immediately relax completely. He'd reach a goal and stop training. He'd solve one problem and ignore the signs of the next. He began practicing Zanshin in real life. After finishing his push-ups, instead of collapsing on the floor, he would stand for 30 seconds, breathing and being mindful. After a difficult meeting, instead of immediately checking his phone, he would sit for a minute processing what had happened. It seems small, but it changes everything. When you maintain awareness after the action, you integrate the learning. When you immediately tune out, you lose the lessons. Within 90 days, something had completely changed in Lucas. People at work started commenting, "You seem different. You're more present. Man, you don't get fazed by anything." His wife was the most direct. "What happened to you? You seem like a different person." And she was right, he was different. Chapter 6. Fudoshin. The mind that does not move, but the real test came on day 105. Lucas was called into an emergency meeting. The company was making cuts. He was going to be fired. The old pattern would have sent me into panic mode. Heart racing, mind spiraling, catastrophic scenarios swirling. But something different happened. He felt the initial shock. He recognized the sensation. And then, nothing. His mind didn't react. His body didn't go into fight or flight mode. He was simply present with the information. "I see. What's the schedule?" The boss was surprised by the calm. "You have 30 days, sorry, Lucas." "Okay, thanks for letting me know." Lucas left the room, returned to his desk, and continued working. His colleagues, who had been laid off along with him, were in a panic. They were calling home, crying, paralyzed. Lucas was calm. Not because he didn't care, but because he had developed something Musashi called Fudoshin, the still mind. The mind that is unshaken by external circumstances. Musashi wrote, "The tree is quiet, but not because of the absence of wind. It is quiet because its roots are deep." Lucas's roots had grown deep. 105 days of flawless training, 105 days of emotional observation without reaction, 105 days of continuous awareness. When the storm hit, he didn't break because he'd already been tested 1,000 times as a child. Over the next 30 days, while everyone else was panicking, Lucas was in action. He updated his resume, activated his network, and went on interviews. By the 23rd, he had 3 job offers. He chose the best one. He left his old company earning 40% more. The colleagues who panicked, they were still unemployed 3 months later. Her sports psychologist who has worked with Olympic athletes for 15 years explains, "The difference between those who perform under pressure and those who collapse isn't talent. It's how much time they spent deliberately exposing themselves to discomfort. Resilience isn't something you have, it's something you build, repetition by repetition." Chapter 7. Hyoho, the strategy of void. But Musashi had one last principle that was the most difficult to understand and the most powerful to apply. Hyoho, the strategy of emptiness. He wrote, "In combat, do not intend to win, intend not to lose." It seems the same thing, but it is not. When you fight to win, you create openings. You push, you expose yourself, you risk too much. When you fight not to lose, you remain whole, without gaps, without weakness. Lucas applied this to his new job. Instead of trying to impress everyone and demonstrate his value immediately, he simply didn't make mistakes. He arrived on time, delivered what he promised, didn't create drama, and didn't make promises he couldn't keep. 3 months later, he was promoted. The boss said, "You're not the brightest on the team, but you're the most reliable, and reliability trumps brilliance." That's Hyoho. You don't have to be the best. You have to have no weaknesses. Musashi never lost a duel, not because he was stronger or faster. He never lost because he never gave an opening. He studied his opponent, waited for a mistake, and executed. Absolute efficiency, zero waste. Lucas began to apply this to everything. In his diet, he didn't try to eat perfectly. He simply never ate junk food. In his training, he didn't try to break records. He simply never failed a day. In his relationships, He didn't try to be the perfect husband. He simply never broke his word. No weaknesses, no loopholes, no excuses. Chapter 8. Sutemi, letting go of the self. 6 months after beginning his journey, Lucas was unrecognizable. Physically stronger, mentally unbreakable, emotionally stable. But he had one final barrier. He was still afraid. Not of external things, but of something internal. Afraid that if he stopped for a day, everything would fall apart. Afraid that all this strength was fragile, temporary. That's when he encountered Musashi's ultimate concept, Sutemi, abandoning the self. Musashi wrote his final words shortly before he died. I regret nothing. I fear nothing. I desire nothing. How does one get to this level? How do you completely abandon fear? Musashi's answer was the most radical. You stop identifying with the outcome. You are not your successes. You are not your failures. You are simply the continuous practice. Lucas tested this in an extreme way. He stopped counting training days. He stopped celebrating milestones. He stopped posting progress on social media. He removed all external validation. The training continued, the meditation continued, the discipline continued. But now without ego, without the need for recognition, without the fear of losing what had been built. Because he finally understood, you can't lose what you are. You can only lose what you have. If your strength depends on maintaining a streak, you'll fear breaking. If your strength is who you've become, nothing can take that away from you. And it was at that exact moment that something scary happened. People started avoiding Lucas, not because he was arrogant, not because he was aggressive, but because his presence was uncomfortable. When you eliminate fear, hesitation, and the need for validation, you become a mirror. People look at you and see everything they're not, and that hurts. His co-workers stopped complaining around him. His friends stopped making jokes about gyms and diets. His own family started commenting, "You're getting too serious," because their existence proves that everything they say is impossible is just uncomfortable. Chapter 9. The Complete Transformation. A year after starting, Lucas was no longer Lucas, not in the sense that he had changed his personality, but in the sense that he had removed everything that was non-essential. He was no longer someone who tried to be disciplined. He was someone who couldn't be undisciplined. Practice wasn't something he did, it was who he was. Musashi called this Ken Zen Ichi, the sword and Zen are one. There is no separation between who you are and what you practice. You don't meditate, you are meditation. You don't train, you are training. People would ask, how do you have so much discipline? The answer was simple. I have no discipline. I've eliminated the parts of me that wanted to give up. This is what Musashi taught. Mental and physical strength isn't about adding things. It's about removing everything that gets in the way of your essential nature. You don't need to motivate yourself to breathe. You don't need to force your heart rate. Why? Because these things are essential to who you are. When training, discipline, and practice become as integrated as breathing, you've reached the scary level. The level where people look at you and think, that's not human. And the truth, they're right. It's not human in the sense of normal human. It's human in the sense of realized human potential. Miyamoto Musashi died at the age of 62, alone in a cave writing. He had no money, no title, no followers, but he had something no one could take away, complete mastery over himself. His last words were, I regret nothing. How many people can say that? How many people reach the end and know they lived at the limit of their capabilities? How many have eliminated fear, hesitation, weakness? The question is not, how did Musashi do it? The question is, why aren't you doing it? You have access to the same knowledge. You have the same number of hours in the day. You have the same human body with the same potential. The difference isn't ability. It's willingness to do what's necessary. A willingness to eliminate dependencies. A willingness to practice until practice becomes identity. A willingness to abandon everything that isn't essential. This daunting level of mental and physical strength isn't for everyone. Not because it's impossible, but because it's uncomfortable. And most people choose comfort over capability. But you're not the majority. If you've watched this far, you've already proven that. The question now is, what are you going to do with this information? If you enjoyed this video, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell and leave a like. And tell me in the comments, what's the first addiction you'll eliminate? What's the first weakness you'll transform? Remember, strength that scares others is the only strength worth having. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for your attention. See you in the next video.